Hello, amazing, beautiful people. Here we are once again. I can't believe it. We're in session 10 already of the Great Exchange. And we're talking today about poverty to prosperity, because none of us want to live on this side just quietly. And it's interesting that I'm talking about this and I plan what I'm going to be talking about way in advance on the week that I'm launching my book. And it's an interesting dynamic. So my bestest friend, who I love dearly, she's amazing. She runs 3 businesses. She's got 5 boys. She's like top notch, super clever. And she said to me, "So how much does it actually cost you to write your book?" And I said, "Oh, with the hours and the investment in people and learning and growing, probably about 20K. And she said, "Is that really a good return on investment? Like, I'm going to need to sell 650 books. Thankfully, I don't have to do them all in one day." But it's interesting that we often look at poverty or prosperity from a financial perspective. I've got other stuff going on in my head around that. But anyway, let's just run with it for a moment. So, looking at the Oxford Dictionary, because we want to take the wisdom from those that have really worked some stuff out, it says it's a state of being extremely poor or the state of inferior quality or an insufficient amount. Okay. So, I then go back and I go, okay, let's answer that question around those books, but also, what's this for and how does it work? Is this a poverty thing or is it a prosperity thing? And how do we see it? So the first thing I went to do is I went, okay, hold on, extremely poor. Yeah, I've had to invest 20 grand. Yeah, for sure. But we've also been blessed with properties, multiple properties, and overseas trips, and we get to live in the fruit bowl of New Zealand, and we're happily married, and we get to hang out with our family. So for me, that's richness, that's wealth for me, because it's what suits us. So it doesn't sit in extremely poor. And then that return on investment, yeah, I might have to sell 650 books to get the return on investment. Might be a bit more actually, because Amazon obviously take a cut out of it. So it's probably about 1,000 books by the time I've really done it. But the reality is I don't have to sell them all in 1 year. I could play the long game. I could look at actually what happens if I did it over 3 years or 5 years. I've still got that investment back and the glory of having the fun of writing the book. I have grown so much in this last 18 months, learning how to write a book because it's my lowest pillar, it's my weakest link, and then learning how to edit it, go through the proofing process, looking at how we publish it, and actually getting it out to market. Like, blown my mind. And if I was thinking about inferior quality, that really doesn't sit there at all, because what I've ended up with, it would have been inferior quality if I hadn't invested actually in some amazing editors and publishers. But what I've ended up with is something that's actually brilliant and excellent, far more than I could have possibly thought or imagined. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the Oxford Dictionary's, explanation for it. And it says successful in material terms, flourishing financially, bringing wealth and success. I'm like, okay, how does that sit for me? And one of the things that has always niggled at me, and I've never quite worked it out, but I keep seeing it. And of course, once you see it, you see more of it, is where I have seen lots of people who have very little. I've worked with lots of people who have very little. So on financial terms, they're poor or they're not great. However, so they've got that poverty mindset in theory. They're not as a mindset. So they're poor, but they seem to have just this blessing around them. They share. If I've got it, you've got it. They've got this abundance in how they live, even though they have very little. And what I've seen, so there's a prosperity in that. What I've seen is people who are very financially well off, often have big fences and they hide stuff, and they're more exclusive than inclusive. And I'm just not convinced that prosperity is about money, because I think it's about your attitude and your mindset. In fact, I have a belief in my experience that poverty or prosperity is a learned behavior. Interesting that people who are lawyers have children who then often become lawyers, or we follow in the family footsteps, whatever that is. So if we've come through generations of not having enough, then we may take that on. Or again, if we've come from generations of having more than enough, then we might take that on. It's really interesting. I believe poverty is our default mode. It's our not good enough, like something's missing. It feels like something's missing. And where it gets reflected in people who hoard, or in hiding or keeping things for yourself, just in case there's a rainy day. And I'm not saying don't save. That's a brilliant idea. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But they often look down. They often don't think that there's enough. It's like, oh my goodness, this is bad. And yet prosperity for me is about a master setting. It's about knowing there's more than enough. It's about knowing. It's about generosity. It's about sharing. It's about being inclusive. It's about looking up. Come on, we can do this. You know, and true wealth for me is in our heart posture. It's in our attitudes and character. Richness in life comes from within. And what I've seen, you know, and where I've just said, oh, you know, prosperity, some people have got lots of money and then they're, you know, it's that they aren't that happy or they aren't that rich within themselves. What I have seen is that people with true wealth and the right heart posture, like my best mate, I love her to the end of the earth and back, because she is looking out for the families that she employs, the people she employs, the families that she feeds, the fruit of what she does. And she does her business with excellence and authenticity and integrity. Bring that on. Whether she was running $1,000 business or $100,000 business or a $4 or $5 million business, that's heaps more than all of that. But whatever it is, she works in that space with authenticity and, yes, with a prosperity and abundant mindset that there's more, that she has within her the capacity to create, the capacity to do that. And I love, you know, that. So that's why I think it is. It's in our heart that gets in our heads, but it's a learned behavior. And for me, I know the best real estate I'll ever have is what's in here. Because it's out of our heart that our mouth speaks, our brains then listen to what our mouth says, and away we go. But it's our battles aren't with each other or finance or whatever. It's up here. It's whether we think we can. And that's good old Henry Ford. He said, if you think you can, you will. And if you think you can't, you won't. It comes back to our thinking. Another image that I had recently that I just thought was gold was that a drain is a reflection of poverty. And I thought, hold on, let me think about this. I've got drains or fountains. So drains or poverty, it robs us, it makes us smaller, it makes us less than, we don't think there's enough, and we end up going down the drain. Like we end up, it's gone. Versus a fountain, which is about, you know, think of a fountain. We live in just outside Napier. Napier is the Art Deco city of the world. And they've got these beautiful fountains that just keep going. And they're enormous. They're just lovely. But that's what they are. They're a joy. Even just the shape of a fountain is a joy. You know, and kids play in them, and you know, you get showered, and it's quite warm here sometimes, and you get showered, and so everybody's refreshed. And it's such a difference if you've got that outlook of I can do this versus I can't. And we've looked at a lot of this during this season of the Great Exchange. So for those of you right now who are listening to this, who are thinking, okay, well, that's all very well, Sal, but how do I go from prosperity to abundance? How do I go from one space to another? How do I make this work? Well, let me suggest that you buy the Great Exchange book. You can come Saturday. It gets launched this week. It's so exciting. Finally, actually, I'm just looking to see if I've got a copy here that I could just sneakily show you, but it's obviously in my other room. That's not very disappointing. So you'll have to wait and see on Saturday. But how about I give you 18 keys that turn your upside down world the right way up, that exchange poverty for prosperity, that exchange fear for love. And I show you how to do it, because pretty much in the book, it's not just an instruction manual, because quite frankly, that's not how it works. But what it is it shows you my story as it originally was. And actually, that was looking from the victim or the poverty mindset. No one loved me, no one cared. I was just dumped at boarding school. Oh my goodness, parents divorced, all that kind of stuff. It's all in there. I've been pretty open. And then what I do is I go back and I look at it now. I look at it from where I am now, having done lots of heart work and head work. And obviously, as a personal alignment coach, that's the blessing of being able to cover that with goodness, with kindness, with gentleness, and getting things in alignment. And then I encourage you to have a thought for yourself. Oh, does this trigger anything? Do you want to think about it? And then I say, okay, if you want to, and if this is a key that would be handy, how about I show you how to do that? Well, the way that I did it, the way I found was most successful. And I'll walk you through the coaching. So if you're interested, come and hang out with me. You can book your launch seat. See, you can launch into your new life. Be like rocket. This stuff's like rocket fuel, just quietly. It's taken me a bit of a while to write it, but it's going to be like rocket fuel. So you can book your space at www.inspiringperspectives.co.nz/book launch. And then I can send you the link. Or if you're local, you can rock up. We're doing 3 events locally. We're going to do one in Havelock North, one in Hastings, and one in Napier. So if you register, you can come and actually physically pick up your book this Saturday. So thank you for taking the time to listen. I really sincerely hope that I see you either in the US, Canada time zone, or in the UK actually, it'll be in that zone as well, or the Australia, New Zealand in the evening online, or we see you in person. Either which way, don't miss out. The Great Exchange. Be the first to get it and start living your life, not in poverty, but in prosperity. Have an amazing God bless day. Thank you.